Hello.
Hello.
Hi team,
I
how's it
like
going?
your leopard print.
You look
But
nice. Yeah.
Thanks.
yeah, it's Jojo's Wednesdays. Days spending with Joseph. I love Jojo's Wednesdays. Everybody's hanging out with Joseph. I love Wednesdays. Cause we're hanging out with Jojo's way. But it's not really about me, it's about everyone else. Artistic projects, Lou.
Me?
Yeah.
Not a lot really, like just trying to touch base again with my writing. Like I feel like I've done everything else but the sort of thing I consider my area, if that makes sense. Because I'll also, if I have writing block, I'll go and paint or I'll go and sing or do music or
Yeah.
something. And I end up doing more of that. And then when I sit down to write, I'm like, I still can't write. But it's starting to get there, like the ideas are starting to churn, but it's actually, I think, just that sitting down and doing it and allocating the time.
Yeah. Do you find like when you go to meet another person or something like that, it kind of just sparks like ideas just kind of get rambling. So when you're like talking to someone or like in person with someone, you kind of have that like all of this stuff in your head that you can't say at the time, and you just have to go, oh fuck, I've got to store that for later, and then get home and you're like, all
Yeah,
right, I can use that now. And then
yeah, 100%. It's like the most bung filing cabinet ever. It's like I put everything in there. I'm like, oh, remember this for later. This is really good. This is really good. I don't like write it down on the spot because it's kind of awkward if I'm like, oh, hey, wait, hold on, Joe. I'm just gonna jot
yeah,
this down. Like while you're in that moment, and then you get home and it's sitting in your head a little bit for a few days, but it's like the filing cabinet has no back to it, so the files just like kind of falling through and coming out the back. So you just kind of take the front ones and yeah.
yeah,
So I don't know. For me, yeah, I really just need to find a way to just vomit that all out onto paper by the end of the conversation.
yeah. I do like voice memos sometimes on the way home. I'll be on the train and I'll look like a loony, and I'll be just kind of like, I'll just remember like keywords, and I'm like, hopefully this will jog my memory once I get home. That I'll be like, or like a tune, I'll be kind of like, da 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 da.
Just singing into your phone.
On the
Yeah,
train, that's a way to
yeah.
get empty seats
Great.
next to you.
Oh,
Hey, it's a good
if there's,
system.
if you can do it, then do it. What
It's
about
like
you?
social distancing without even trying. It's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. That's a
What?
great idea though. I think, being able to just like put it down on your notepad or your phone. Why not?
Yeah.
Hmm.
Ben, have you got any creative projects at the moment that you're like working on?
Oh well. Um, I don't know. I'm much the same, to be honest. Like, I've got so many ideas, and I have been doing a lot more creative practice in general. Like, playing music, just exploring new material. Um, but I have, no, I don't think I've landed on just one creative project.
Do you do
That's, yeah.
sort of like creating, or like from creating from nothing, or do you do a lot more kind of would you call it recontextualizing and recreating kind of thing?
That's interesting because I would say more of the latter. What I really love to do is just explore. For example, take already a work that's in existence and then, like you're saying, recontextualize it and try and present it with a different story or a different relevance for a different audience altogether. Um, yeah, but then that also leads on to the compositional side of things, right? Particularly in music. So you pick up a piece of music and then you think, oh, what other ideas could I use from this piece of music? And that could really spark a creative process. Yeah, it's a bit of both.
Do you
Yeah,
find any of those things start to link over time? Like you're like that piece of music sort of reminds me of that idea that I had for that thing ages ago. Because I find that it's like this really
Yes. Yeah.
convoluted like set of wires, and you're like, oh, that was that thing I thought of 3 years ago that ties into this. Okay, cool. And it
Yeah,
sort of gives that little idea a bit of a spark again.
it's
absolutely. Yeah.
kind of like how sometimes I don't know. I do it. I'm just assuming that everyone does it, but you'll kind of notice like, oh, this period of time really has a theme. Like this, like I would say that my theme at the moment was like setting boundaries or like whatever. I mean, that's always the theme, but it's kind of. Do you ever be like? Do you do that, Lou?
Yeah, I think it's sort of like whatever's relevant in your life. Like, I even look at things I would like say writing in uni versus like things in like early uni versus my masters and stuff. And I was going through very different stages of life, and all my works were like I was like, oh, someone was definitely feeling some kind of way there, like like oh, I was going through a thing. But it is though. It's like generally kind of stages that, and then you think of the music you're listening to at that time, and it's funny how hearing that song now can be like, oh wow, this used to be like my anthem at this stage, or this is, and then you just go, why? But it's all, it is. Creativity comes in phases with whatever you're feeling. Like, I can look at a piece I've done and be like, I was, high anxiety when I created that, or I was this when I sort of worked through that. And I think that's the nice thing about creativity, because it's kind of evoked from whatever, stage you're in.
Yeah. And personal experience is such a huge factor, right? Exactly what you're feeling at the time, and what you're thinking, what the people around you are feeling and thinking as well.
Yeah.
That plays a huge role, I think. I mean, for example, there's a lot of discourse within music theatre at the moment about various topics, particularly diversity. And, that in particular has sparked my interest in exploring more diverse styles of music, things that we wouldn't normally go to straight away. For example, um, the role of, say, African American spirituals
Yeah.
in musical theatre, and how they tell stories. And how could we maybe find that sort of flavor with Australian, First Nations people and their music and their language? So, hmm.
What's African American spirituals?
So the early African slaves that were taken over to work on the plantations. They brought with them all of their musical traditions, but then over time, it sort of, I mean, they sort of combined it with Western music traditions that existed, and what you have was, as an outcome, is these short songs, which are really spirituals. That's what the lyrics were, but they were also work songs. So essentially, all of these slaves, the workers, would sing this on the plantations, on the railroads. And in time, what they started to become were actually messages, maybe not of hope, but of just connection between each other. A point of, reference for each of them, for their own culture, their experience. It was a way for them to really articulate how they were feeling.
Is it also a way of like, I guess connecting with somebody, like if they met somebody that worked somewhere, on a say different plantation, or whatever, and they all knew the song, it's a sense of unity and something that was just for them, and it's a form of communication, being like, I'm feeling this way, we're feeling this way, you're feeling this way, we're all feeling the same way, without having to be like, hey, I'm feeling like shit and this world sucks. Like, it's sort of, you know what I mean?
And a lot of it, you're right, a lot of it is steeped in religious tradition. For example, so many of the spirituals talk about the River Jordan and wanting to cross the River Jordan. Now, that river could be any river. It could be the Hudson River, right? That they wanted to cross to get away from their current state. And it's all these songs which are a little bit bittersweet, because there's a glimmer of hope, but it's not huge. Whereas when they sing, and I'd encourage you guys to explore it, they sort of talk about something that's over the river. If we make a journey, we'll get there somehow. Yeah. And it's powerful stuff, because it's the sort of stuff, hope is powerful, right? Yeah. It's the sort of stuff that inspires hope. And when you have hope, you can absolutely work through anything that life throws at you. This got really deep. Anyway.
No. It was like plunged.
It's probably like my face is just kind of like, it's like good. I'm like, so much.
And it's like, next question is like, so do you like stuff?
No, literally, I'm like,
what's your favorite color? And why? What's your favorite vegetable? What's your spirit vegetable?
What's it like an example of one of the spirituals? A spiritual, would you say, is the song? In like, to be pleb about it.
It's a song. So so for example, a good I mean, a good example of a spiritual, I could probably provide a couple actually, is Swing Low, Sweet Chariot.
I was about to say, is that
Oh,
one? Yeah,
Oh, Sweet Chariot.
yeah. I
Yes.
was, yeah, that's what I
Yeah.
was about to jump on.
What other ones do you know, Lou?
No, Swing Low Sweet Chariot was my first
Yeah.
go-to.
Famous one. There's other ones, right? For example, there's Wade in the Water.
I
Uh,
love Wade in the Water.
Wade
Yeah.
in the water. Yeah. And there's Every Time I Feel the Spirit. There's so many ones. There's ones that particular slaves used to sing on while working on the railroad, like, chain gang songs. Interestingly, I was thinking about what's the Australian equivalent, and the thing that came to mind was, the song lines, that the First Nation people used to sing. I don't know enough about it, but I started doing some initial reading, and apparently these songs would actually help them find their way from one destination to another. So it can
Literal destination or like spiritual
literal, no, no,
destination?
physical. So it would be about the landscape, it would be about the flora, the fauna, and in terms of what you will see when you come to a particular fork in the road, and that's what people used to use before maps to navigate around. In an oral tradition, right? Like you would just create a song out of it, and that's how you would, yeah.
Wow.
That's interesting.
Mm.
Yeah, when you were saying Australian ones, I straight away had like Tie Me Kangaroo Down Sport, and I'm like, I don't feel like that's any kind of spirituality, but now it's in my head and it's gonna kind of sit there all day. So,
Yeah.
no, but no, it's interesting though. Like so many cultures like use song to communicate. Like song is story, like,
Yeah.
and that's how you get so much of what you have today is passed from song to song, story to story. Like storytelling is vital. And yeah,
Absolutely.
I think
Some of
song's the
these,
easiest way of that, because if you don't have the words in a song, you at least have tune, but you'll sort of know what the words mean. If you know, like, so
Yeah,
either
you can.
way, the essence is there.
and some of these songs back then, this is during the times of slavery, they actually were used to communicate messages which their captors wouldn't understand, particularly when they're, for example, slaves were using the Underground Railroad to escape, go from the south to the north, and, these songs became kind of that, what do you call it, like an identifier.
Yeah.
Yeah, and a point of connection. Hmm. I don't know how to
No, I was kind of laughing. I'm like, oh, before when we were saying like all these different cultures, I was like, oh, I'm so uncultured, like in general. And I remember this one time, I was like, because even when it comes to theatre and knowledge of like, it's not is it culture to know lots of theatre? I don't know, but. So I remember one of these guys that I used to know when I did phone call work, because everyone's an alcoholic that did the phone calls there. I went to the pub afterwards, and I really like admired this guy. Like I really put him on a pedestal, but not in a homosexual way, but just a oh you're so cool way. And then he was like, oh, I did a music theatre course, and I was like, okay, cool. And then he started I was like, I do musicals sometimes for fun. And then he was like, oh, good, we have a common interest. And then he's like, oh, have you heard of this one and this one? And I said no to all of them. They were all really obscure kind of ones that I've never I still probably haven't heard of them now, other than him. And then he was just kind of like, oh, and he never spoke to me again.
So is the musical theatre equivalent of like a hipster, like you wouldn't know it?
Yeah, it was like musical equivalent of a hipster. We all met, right, through Crybaby, the musical. And Ben, you were the MD, Lou, you did costumes and props, or just costumes? Are you a bit quiet? Can anyone else?
Am I quiet?
Yeah.
Hi, is that better?
Yeah.
Yeah, it is better.
Woo!
So Yeah, we all met through Crybaby. You did costumes, you did um, music directing, and I remember I was in like this kind of headspace. That my headspace going into the musical was like, you were there to do a job, and you're not going to make friends. You're just gonna do it, and you're gonna learn it, and you're gonna get better. Wrong attitude. I know
I
that
had the
now.
same attitude. I'm like, I'm gonna go in, do a thing, and get out. Like,
Yeah, and I remember like my first impression of Yulu was like that you were super efficient, super organized, super like on the ball, easy. I know now that you're still super efficient and super organized, but you are like a ping pong crazy, but it's in the most perfect way. It's like a brilliant. It all comes together, and it's a necessity for you. I'm not saying that as a negative thing at all. I love your and Ben, you were like this. This is this rude? Is this me just being like? And this is what I thought of you.
no, because I won't tell you what I thought. No,
No, I think that I've just slammed you with that, Lou, and I think I've got to give you a chance to like defend and state your case.
no. So go on to Ben. Move on to Ben.
All right.
It's like I completely disagree with you. That's completely false. No.
Sorry, I'm writing notes. I got my notepad out. Sorry.
And Ben, you were like this. Also, you were just kind of. You know, in Heathers, how they're like they just float above it all. You just were like everything that happened. You were just. I kind of put you on a pedestal in a way that I was just like, oh my god, knows he just knows what's up and everything that happens. And I was like, I could never impress you. And any time that I sung something that was off, you were always like, because I was always sitting to the side, you were like, and then we go. I think
Side eye.
yeah, absolute side eye.
Yeah.
Were you in the headspace of complete calm and being above it all?
Not really. I mean, yes and no. I don't get frazzled easily, right? So it takes a lot to actually break me as such. Um, and I do work really well under pressure. So there was a lot going on. There was a lot for me to learn because essentially that was my first gig being an MD. So yeah,
But
I
you've
mean,
done, you've done heaps of like
yeah,
it's your work.
I've dabbled in it before. Like I've worked with groups on a much smaller scale, but in terms of pulling together an entire musical, that was essentially my first full experience, which I'm super thankful for because I learned so much about the way that I work, the way that I need to work with other people. In fact, that entire cast, crew, production team, they taught me so much about, how to really appreciate the different creative inputs that you would get in a process like that. So yeah, to answer your question, there was a lot of stuff going on, a lot of pressure, a lot of work to be done, but I really loved that about that whole process. Mm.
You said you don't get frazzled easily, and this might end up being a really crap question. Why? Was there like a moment that you were like, fuck this, I'm not going to get frazzled easily anymore ever again? Or a build up that you were kind of like, this is the moment, this is the time?
What, like peak frazzle to make you go, this isn't going to peak frazzle right now.
Yeah. Did you just snap?
Yes, there was. Yeah. Long story short. So I think I hit that point when I was about 24 or so.
Me.
Yeah. And this was back when I was living in New Zealand, right? And so I just gone through drama school. I'd finished my studies. I had all of these exciting things lined up, but then the earthquakes hit, and everything fell apart. And then after that, there was this whole like year and a half where I was just sort of in a state of complete confusion and chaos, and I think that sort of changed me. And moving to Melbourne and having to go through the immigrant experience, it's not really an immigrant experience, but somewhat, really taught me a lot about perseverance and patience in particular, and just keeping cool. Yeah.
because I often think like, I think that I'm definitely not going. All right, like I'm trying to pick what to pick. Like, do I say this one or do I say this one? I'm kind of split into two minds. All right, the one thing that I want to say is that I'm currently going through something that is like I'm learning to be assertive and just say what I need to say, and then face the consequences of what I need to say after I say it, rather than being worried about what I have said because it's holding me back as a person. And it's kind of funny because through all of my, like, I did a arts course, an arts course, a theatre course, something. I don't know what it is. And I was constantly told to. She's like, you just need to make the mistake and get it over and done with, and then face the consequences after. Like, you can't think about it. And a lot of the time, she was saying it within a improvisation context, but a lot of it was also just life. She's like, you had some valid input there, but you didn't put it in because you thought that it would offend someone. And yeah, anyway, only learning that now, and that was like an 18-year-old thing. And I'm thinking, like, because you have all of this is the second thing. I feel like, or I've heard that you pretty much go from 18 to 26 as this huge, like, learning curve. Would you say, and I'm going to pass it to Lou, through those years from 18 to 26, are you learning as much from the years beyond 26 to now? Do you feel like you're learning as much in giant jam packs?
Truth, I'm learning more beyond those ages. Like, I think when you hit your late 20s or early 30s, something I think for a lot, I don't know if it's for everyone, but something happened in me where you stopped caring, because like I studied like writing all through like that 18 to 26 bracket, because I did a like degree and master, so I was studying for a long time, and you'd have to stand up in front of the entire class, or the entire class would read your story and pick it apart right in front of your face. So you'd find that you stopped writing at some points what you wanted to write, and would write things that because it had to get heard in the class. So you would edit yourself so you wouldn't offend people, like you were saying, and things like that, because it had to go to a public forum, which I guess kind of robs creativity in a sense. If something happens to you beyond those years where you stop actually caring about that, or you realize that one of the biggest things for me that helped, like, I don't know, is we've spent so much time worried about what other people think of us, but at the real like core of it, people think of us like what we think they think of us. So you walk away being like, oh, I made an idiot of myself, that person hates me, and they're probably like, oh, I feel like nachos for dinner, like they're not like they're not sitting there like. But if you place it in your head and go, all right, that was an interesting interaction, cool, let's move on to this thing, instead of like people, we kind of create what we think people think of us. That's like a projection of ourselves, like, you know what I mean? You're like, oh, I made a total doofus of myself, they think I'm stupid, they think I'm this, and it's like they probably don't, but we create that. And I think one of my biggest awakenings was when I said that. I'm like, people think of me what I think people think of me, because you'll never really inside out know what someone thinks of you truthfully, like in every waking moment. So I think you actually do learn more in those later years. It's like, use that 18 to 26 bracket to make all those mistakes and keep making mistakes, like make mistakes right on through life, because they sort of emphasize that as being your big mistake making period. But how the hell do you learn if you don't make mistakes?
Yeah, it's kind of like if you're talking to someone, I hear like the common phrases like, oh, you probably think this, you probably like, when someone will say it to you, they'll make a statement and then they'll be like, oh, you probably think I'm stupid for saying that, or whatever. If you say it enough, it's kind of like you're planting the seed in their head. You're like, the word in itself is like, you think I'm stupid, they'll be like, oh yes please.
But
and they'll kind of
when people say that to me, I'm like, thanks for telling me what I think. Like, I didn't think you were stupid before, but maybe now, and a little bit annoying. No, but no, but it's true. Like, because we try to self-soothe that way as well. You try to put it out there and be like, oh, I'm gonna ask a really stupid. Like, I think my key phrase I say at work, especially learning like a new job and stuff like that, I'm like, this might sound a bit daft. Like, honestly, I start so many of my emails with that for every little question I ask, and I'm like, I've put it out there. You've put that out there and gone, I'm stupid.
I got there first. You can't hurt me.
Yeah, it's like the shield.
But do you feel like you've got as much personal? I know I did ask the question already, and but do you feel like you've got as much personal growth within the past year? But then again, everyone grows at different rates. What about you, Ben? The same question being like within the periods from 26 to 24 and 26 and over. Oh, I just said 24 because that's my age. Whoops. But you know what I meant, 18.
I'd agree with Lou because, during that age, more so than ever, you are your own worst critic. And you sort of become an adult, you have these expectations of yourself, and then, you strive so hard to meet those expectations. But what we fail to factor in, and it's a bit of a learning journey actually, is that we're not going to meet all those expectations. And change is constant. And more than meeting those expectations, what's important is building resilience and being adaptable. And I think that's what that whole period of my life was for me, is sort of learning that about myself in terms of, well, you don't have to tick every single box. You just need to be able to adapt to whatever situation you're in and be resilient enough to overcome challenges. And then, and that coming out of that phase is when you really understand like your true characteristics and, what you're about and what you want in life, what you don't want in life. Everything becomes clearer. And what that does in reverse is it develops your self-confidence, point where you no longer care about what, other people might think. I mean, you still do, don't get me wrong, because we live in a society, right? But it doesn't influence you to the point where you base all of your life decisions on that.
Yeah.
You start to make more of your own choices and start building your own paths from that.
And I think you own those things a little bit more too. Like, like you just kind of like you own that, you don't get frazzled easily, or like I own that I'm organized chaos, like bit of a hot mess, but you kind of own that stuff and go, okay, this is what I am. And instead of, getting annoyed at myself for being like this, understand that you're like that, you adapt and you deal with that. Like, it's just, yeah.
And you start to preempt a lot of it as well. For example, you start to preempt when you're going to respond a certain way and behave a certain way. And then, you sort of tend to choose your journey through life based on that, and your social situations based on that. So, yeah.
Similar to you being, Lou, being frazzled, or no, not frazzled, sorry, you said the word frazzled, that's, anyway. Whoop. Similar to you being organized chaos, how you're saying like you can actually take that, it's often the way that it's articulated can sound negative, but the way that you use it is actually it's a do you have the word, because I can't find it?
Benefit.
A benefit. Yeah, it's a strength. Yeah, but I remember a lot of the time when I was younger, I was constantly told I was too sensitive and too, and that's possible. People can be too sensitive, but I never had heard sensitive being used in a positive light. And it's kind of like the more you kind of learn about, the more you kind of learn about the qualities of what people are putting out and saying about you, is the more that you can actually look into the benefits of being sensitive or organized chaos. It's kind of every quality you have is a double-edged sword, and every quality you have can be used for the best if you choose to focus in on it and realize that.
Absolutely. And instead of trying to fight what it is, like you go, yeah, I am really sensitive, and that's a bad thing. Because I've, I even, like there's times that I've been called too soft or things like that. Like when I've had to train teams and things like that. And at the start, you just go, what? Like, do I have to be the complete opposite of what that is? Do I have to go in and be a drill sergeant? Because I don't know. But we all instantly think that we have to be the opposite of that thing that we perceive to be like a negative trait. Whereas what you kind of is better to do is be like, I am this. What's the best way I can communicate using the qualities from this? So being sensitive means I can sit down and have chats with people and, get to the core of why they're behaving a certain way, or trying to understand them. So there's that empathy side, like with sensitivity, but then you've also got to be like, all right, I'm sensitive, so I get hurt easily. Look at what hurts you. So you kind of pick it apart in that way. So you don't take these things as a negative, as an entire negative. But you have to adapt to it. Like if it's what you are, it's what you are. Like you're not gonna just suddenly be the opposite of that one day. And who wants to be the entire opposite of sensitive? Like
True.
Who likes that person? But but you know what I mean? Like it's just sort of owning what you are and figuring out the best way to use those things. Like,
do you think that maybe in that case, the way that we communicate people's weaknesses or traits when they're being used as a weakness in a really ineffective way, if we're saying to people things like, I don't know what the equivalent would be for, let's say, like kind of being like, oh, you're being kind of organized chaos. I can be really inarticulate. I don't know if you've noticed. That to tell someone they're too sensitive, and the fact that is something I hear very often. I don't hear it so much about myself anymore, but I hear it a lot being used for other people, is the way that that's being communicated now. I'm kind of thinking maybe we need to, as a country, as a people, kind of learn to articulate that in a better way. Do you get what I mean, or am I just talking shit?
What do you mean? Like, for example, we're living in such a politically charged world at the moment, where everything someone says is going to offend someone else, and someone else is going to start a campaign to make it a point that other people know that they've been offended. So I get what you're saying. Like, there's sensitivity, but then there's addressing that sensitivity and just going, okay, everyone just needs to chill down a little bit.
Yeah.
So that's what you're asking, right? Is how do we just tell people to not be so sensitive in a politically correct way?
Yeah, or just in a sensitive way. yeah.
In a sensitive way.
But how
Or
do you...
you get a blanket, you get a hot chocolate.
How do you tell people they're flawed without pointing out their flaws?
You could play charades and like guess it themselves. That could win.
Do you so with that? Do you feel like you're changing at a kind of rapid pace then? Lou, you were the last one talking, so I'm going to keep on rating that. I was the last one talking, but
technically,
I'm pointing this at you.
So changing what at a rapid pace? Sorry.
Changing as a person at a rapid pace, like
100%, all the time. But it's also, as I said, I think also it comes after that sort of mid-20s bracket as well. When you stop. We don't realize how much of the person we are is created by other people's opinions of us, or what we perceive to be other people's opinions of us. And the minute you kind of let that go, and you don't truly let that go until I'd say your mid to late 20s. Like you really just, it's ingrained in us because you go through school and it's so heightened every day. You've got everyone there, and school's very social and make or break, and then you go through uni, which is quite similar. You're discovering more about yourself and things like that. But it's the minute you stop, like something just snaps in you, and you don't care as much about what other people's opinions are of you. Like you listen to them and you go, I can see how you'd feel that way. You might think about it for a bit and be like, was I doing that? Was I doing this? But it doesn't rule the course of your life beyond that, because there's a point where your own personal happiness sort of takes over, and you have to go, for myself and for my journey and my part and what I'm doing. And that comes back to that self-soothing thing as well. Like, you just, you kind of, I think it's just.
I keep bringing it up because, and it's again for a selfish kind of a thought that's like in the past I don't know 6 months I feel like I've had this really rapid change, and yeah, I did have that idea that it's like, well, this is just normal. This is normal because once you become once you're 26, like pretty much everything just falls into place, and I think that's still true. Everything always falls into place if you, so long as you have it. No positive attitude. Is 26 is awful?
No, 26 was bloody great. I'm just saying. No, I'm saying that there's not a like little secret. There's not ever going to be a time where you feel like it's all together.
Yes.
Oh.
There's no time where it all falls into place. It's like, think of people that had it all fall into, or consider themselves fall into place, bam, COVID. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you will never have it all in place. And the minute you get rid of that idea that is going to be, like, no, it's all going to be okay. Know that it will. But never expect that it's all going to be in place. There's not some magical day where you wake up and you're like, oh, like, you know. But there's a day where you don't care about it as much, where you're just moving forward and you're seeing where you want to go and how to get there and what you're doing. But you know, you look around and be like, oh, these are the things I wanted to sort of, the boxes I wanted to tick and things like that. But it's never like a certain age where you're like 26, oh, life's going to be in place. This is what I picture, X, Y, Z. You can say, this is what I picture and I'm working towards that. But there's no magical like age where it all falls into place.
What a turd. But thank you, that's very, very good to know.
I'm sorry to break that to you. I could just be, Ben, what do you think?
Oh, no, I feel like we've just dropped a bombshell, but it's, you know, it's an important thing to discuss, because I agree with you. So I personally, okay, so there's moments of clarity, right? There's moments when you're like, okay, cool, this is what I need to do. Next, this is how I'll do it. This is who I'll do it with, so on and so forth.
This is who I'll do.
But those moments are only for, you know, short-term ventures, right? There's always going to be that degree of uncertainty when you, for example, are in a job for a while and you need to think about your next career step. Or, for example, when you're in one place for a while and you want to think about, where do I go from here? Or you're with a group of friends or a partner and you think, what's the next step in this relationship? So there's always change. And I think that's what I was saying earlier, is you will have moments of clarity, but then in and around that is a whole heap of, you just got to work with it as it comes.
Did you think the same when you were my age? Like, when I'm 26 is the year for me. I still think I'm like, when I'm 30, I'm going to be hot shit. I'm like...
And, okay, I must say though, like, when I hit 30, something changed in me, and maybe I just stopped caring as much.
You know what, you do become hot shit at 30 because you don't care.
Exactly.
That's the point. Like, so you will be hot shit, not necessarily in the, I'm driving the best car and I've got the best house and I've got this partner, like, and X, Y, Z, but you, like, will stop caring, so you will be hot shit in that sense.
100%.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'll be hot shit at 30, but that will be my moment of clarity.
No, look, I think it can happen at any age, right? Everyone.
Really, there's no age.
Yeah. Like, to give you an example, right? So I moved to Melbourne when I was 25.
Yep.
And gosh, 25 to 30, like every year something was changing. That's not to say I didn't have any clarity or I didn't know what I was doing. It's just I needed to change along with everything around me.
I wonder, are there like, statistically, this is just a pondering because we obviously can't just gather everyone in a room in the world, but certain life lessons that have a date for most people, like, uh, if anyone else can have an example, then I'd prefer that, but...
I don't know if it's a certain date, because if you really think about certain lessons, like say for example, I don't know, let's say falling in love, right? You're a teenager and you fall in love with the person that's your first love, right? And you go through all the wrong things you do and all the right things you do, that sort of like obsession, that first heartbreak, my heart's going to be torn out of my chest, XYZ. That might not happen at teenage for some people. That can happen in people's 20s or people's 30s. And they will still have all those same feelings that you'd have in there. So there's no date set on those things, like in certain lessons in life. But there are certain lessons you will learn and have to learn. But I don't think you can really link anything to a specific age. You can only link physical things, like, you know, like being a kid, how to eat with a fork. Like, you know what I mean? Should know this by X, Y, Z. Like, I don't think those general life lessons, like the big sort of ones, go through. And things like, say, grief. Everyone will experience grief at a different stage in life, at least once. Yeah, and like heartbreak and all of that. I don't think there's a particular date, but it might be 24 is the age where you learn that you might not be hot shit at 26. Like,
I will be.
I will be.
Sorry, that's
So-
not up for debate. I will be. That is.
Sorry. No, but like, you know, you learn that, you know, it might not be the time where you have it all together, but you will have it all together. Everyone will at some point in moments have it all together.
But you could be like your first love, where you would be, on average, maybe you could be kind of like between 15 and 18. No, you can't even do that. How
That's what I mean. It
crazy!
doesn't happen for everyone
You
at that
could be
age.
like a little.
People fall in love at 20, like at 20 or 30, and be like, that was the first person I've fallen in love with.
That's
And
annoying.
you go
But
through the heartbreak, and you go through the hot mess that is, and you learn so much about yourself. But that lesson, everyone will learn it, but they
It's-
will learn it at different times.
it's annoying that this is like something that I haven't already thought about. It's frustrating. I'm like, how immature, how stupid. But I'm like, oh well.
No,
And if I can add to that, so I think it's also the perception of those, you know, those notions. For example, love. How we perceive love at 15 is going to be very different to 18, to 23, to 28. Therefore, your experience of that is going to be all the more different, right, at each of those stages. And so you're right. Some people will not really experience true love until much later. Or some might even do it at 13 and then they get married, have family, you know, whatever. So,
and then you got to kind of learn about like every relationship is different. I was actually thinking about this before, Lou, because you and I have been friends for like the 2 years, and then we kind of like, because we didn't necessarily form our friendship with other people, it was just a one-on-one kind of a thing. And I was thinking that it was kind of odd that we haven't just become a group of, that we hadn't like shared it with it and become it like a kind of clique or a group of people. And what was I thinking? I was kind of like I was thinking whether that was a good way to have a friendship. I was like, should I kick her out of the? No, I was thinking, is this normal, and is this good, or should it be something that you expand in a friendship? But then I had this feeling of like, wait, no, it's just another relationship. And when people are in a loving relationship, they always have different criteria for the way that their one works. And like, it just kind of reminded me that when you're thinking about a loving relationship, pardon me, that you'll have two people, and you've got your own arrangement that works for you, and everything within a romantic relationship almost, except a kissing, to translate to a friendship? No?
Right.
No,
Is
no,
that... Oh.
I was about to say when you were first like, you know, should we invite more people? I'm like, excuse me. No, but
You get where I'm going though.
no, but I think a friend, but because you had that anticipation, that worry that should we be this or XYZ, a friendship is whatever the hell a friendship is. Like, it's whatever you make it. It's the connection between two people. Like, the friendship I have with Ben is different to the friendship I have with you. Like, it's just the way it is. And in terms of like that romantic love element, like one of my favorite quotes ever from a book I read was like, marriage or relationship is a religion for two that you construct. So it's your own set of rules. It's your own, I guess, rituals and things like that you do as a pair. Like if our ritual, Joe, is going and having, you know, too many chocolates and coffees, like, you know, at the place near your house, like, and writing and discussing things, like, that's our ritual. That every friendship, every relationship is a religion of its own, like, with its own things. And yeah, and if you invite people into that, then they kind of convert into the religion in a sense.
I really like that. That's really cool. And it only came from a place of me always wanting to, I've got this thing where I'm like always trying to improve on the relationships that I have. So this was coming from a place of being like, would that benefit us? Would that, or would that...
As friends.
But,
am I not a good enough friend for you?
Everything can always be better, right? Perfect doesn't exist. Unless you're 30, like, once I'm 30 and I'm hot shit. That will be the epitome
Yeah,
of
you get it right.
perfect. Did I use the word correctly as well?
I can just imagine you're going to be like lying awake the night before your 30th birthday.
I know.
It's like going to happen.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, tomorrow I'm magically hot shit. I will emerge.
Yeah. Tomorrow I will wake up a hot shit.
Woodland creatures will dress me.
On that note, I'm gonna thank you both for joining. I really valued and learned a lot from both of you. So thank you. Bye.
Is it done?
It's done. Goodbye.
I can't.
I can't deal with you.
There's this
45 minutes is too much.